we do. Disclaimer, the comments are locked, but that's to help me moderate things like racism, sexism, hatred, stuff like that. Otherwise, as long as your comment does not involve those, your comment will probably be approved. That's all that's about. Moving on. Now, in my opinion from playing the game, the meta's in a really weird spot right now. And I say that because, somewhat biasedly, because not only is my favorite champion a late game champion, but just a lot of the champions I play are really AD carry roles, and they're more of the late game auto-attacking, heavy damage crit champions. And the late game is considered weak right now because it never exists, which is part of my problem with the meta right now. And maybe the preseason, especially at first when the new items came out and things like that was going on, late game kind of was iffy because the game usually snowballed so hard that you just didn't even want to feel like playing anymore. So you either surrendered at 20 or you got stomped before 20 minutes came. While now, especially the pro games have been going on for a couple weeks now, and just solo queue and stuff, games are starting to get a bit longer because people are starting to figure certain things out. And so, in my opinion, late game champions aren't bad. Like, for whatever reason then, if late game was terrible, why is Gangplank and Rise still eternally, banned or picked first? Literally every game that they're open, especially in the pro games, but even solo queue, like Rise, I don't really see too much, to be honest, because his skill cap went from like a beginner level champion to like, oh, well, okay, that sucks. It's like a medicine bottle now. You gotta like twist it, press it, you gotta hope you popped it at the right time. It's kind of a little bit weird, but if you can do that, Rise is very satisfying, let's just put it that way. Gangplank, meanwhile, you just gotta farm up. Doesn't matter how far behind you were, just farm that up and you'll be good to go. And then we look at even my favorite champion, Jinx. Pretty much kind of the same thing, just scale up and then you'll be just fine. But the way I see it, especially from an auto-attacking AD carry's point of view, towers are disgustingly weak right now. Like, towers are so weak that if they were rappers in a rap game, they'd be booed out the club from how weak their bars were. Like, it just makes, all towers really are right now are just giant stone wards. Which is pretty good because they exist. Wards are a thing, they're like magic. When you go back, they only cost 75 gold. Buy as many pinks as you can, as a matter of fact. Or at least health pots. If you're not going to be buying pink wards because you just don't care about your life, or my life if I'm in the area because we just don't need vision apparently. We all Clark Kent, we just see through everything, doesn't matter. Fog of War, what is that? At least buy some health pots so then you don't die to the inevitable gank you get because you don't have your areas checked when you're pushing. They decided to buff Dragon, and I think it's good because part of the problem with the meta was that it was a lot of laning phase and then like a team fight might win the game was over. By buffing Dragon, you make that an objective that suddenly has more priority once again. Like in most of either my games, pro games, whatever, Dragon wasn't really something you wanted. Now you kind of want it, even though you don't really need it, because you don't want, at least at the minimum, you don't want the other team to get it, so you want to take it. And it just makes towers even more weak though, because now you can burn them when you get Dragon too. But again, for late game champions like Jinx for example, who could already destroy towers with the best of them, and a meta where the tower is even weaker, that makes her even stronger. And now this new Dragon buffs just made her even stronger. Like literally the only problem with some of these champions that I keep getting is that it's just that the whole underlying thing. It's always the same thing with no matter what champion that's being talked about. They're late game. Late game doesn't exist. And it doesn't. I'm not saying people that say that are stupid or anything like that. Late game's not supposed to exist, especially if the game goes right in your mid-game comp. I just usually play a bunch of games where the game never goes right. Like if something could go wrong, it always goes wrong. So that's why I always usually play Jinx. It's like, okay, this is what we want to do, but when the game goes wrong, here's our insurance card that we can now cash in because I decided to play this. So yes, if the enemy team picks like an early game, mid-game team comp and they actually execute it pretty flawlessly, I'm in for a world of hurt. But if they don't, like they usually don't, I'm in for a point where I've only lost to Jinx maybe twice in all of Season 6 so far. So I mean, and I'm not good at the game. I'm not saying that to like brag, like, oh haha, if you play that game and you suck, that's just because you suck. No, it's just that it's possible, you know what I mean? Like I'm like a mediocre player, I'm still pulling it off pretty well. So that means all of you guys, who are probably much better players than I can, could definitely pull that off. In a meta where Dragons are kind of getting back to where they were, they're kind of becoming priority. Rift Herald is kind of iffy because it still beats the living crap out of you. And like, do you want it after that point? Because you have to take the ward and you take the whatever it's called just to go back to base to heal back up, and you're out of lane for so long. It's just kind of weird. But that's really the main kind of like issues with the game right now. Also, just like a side note, just kind of like shout out to supports though. Like I can't say I'm terribly happy when like Face of the Mountain Janna decides to like last hit the cannon minion even when they don't have Face of the Mountain up. But I get it, right? Like they're not... Okay, some of them are trolling, but some of them, like supports, they really don't get a lot of gold. They support the team, but they can't support nothing financially from the lack of gold they get. Like it is kind of ridiculous, so I do feel for them a little bit. But with Gragas being buffed, and then, you know, I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. I'm one of the mind that I didn't really miss Gragas, to be honest. The whole good old level 2 ganks to go with my cup of tea in the morning, that was so lovely. It was not lovely. It's a sarcasm in case it wasn't clear. So, I mean, we're gonna see where the meta goes. Sometimes that's what it takes to change the meta. It's like even if it seems unnecessary buffs and then some nerfs on the other side. So with certain things getting buffed, certain things getting nerfed, Kog'Maw being ridiculous right now. I underestimated Kog'Maw, to be honest. That's a video for another time. This video, however, has concluded. So I don't know what the next video is gonna be, because life is full of a lot of kinks. But until next time, take care. GG, get jinxed.